It's the Hip Hop School.
It's that time.
Past and present podcast.
It's that time.
All regions stand up.
On your feet.
North, south,
everywhere.
east,
Where you at?
and west, Midwest.
You
Where you
know
at?
the rule.
Act a fool. You gotta be tight with your tool when you go to the Hip Hop School. Big wrong niggas crying all Primo, Fur, and Deja Rude, child. Get out your feelings, you get booed at the Hip Hop School. You know the rule. Act a fool. You gotta be tight with your tool when you go to the Hip Hop School. Near can't be mad, cause you got swag and easy, cool. Bitch, your motherfucking problem, knowledge rule at the Hip Hop School. You know the rule. Act a fool. You gotta be tight with your tool when you go to the Hip Hop School. Can't look like that, cause mental son got artifacts. The truth is cruel, but that's just fuel at the Hip Hop School. Past and present.
What's up, y'all?
Welcome to another episode of the Hip Hop School Past and Present podcast. I am Deasia, the assistant principal. You have Supreme Ra, the principal. Heezy, the dean of all things hip hop. And we have a very, very special guest in the building tonight, one of the pioneers of hip hop. We have Dr. Butcher in the building. How y'all doing tonight, fellas?
What's going on?
All good, man. Excited for this show, you know.
And Dr. Butcher, we're so glad to have you here tonight. We know that you have a wealth of knowledge and insight about hip hop and the hip hop industry. You've worked with so many different people, and I will let you expound on that as well. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes.
Before we get this thing started, like we do each and every week, we start off with a hip hop trivia question. And we let the people answer it throughout the duration of the show. At the end of the show, we will reveal the answer to the hip hop trivia question. This week's hip hop trivia question is brought to you by our sponsor, Supreme's Pull Up, Art by Chunk G, the Uhuru Academy, Lit and Leisure Travel in the Deaths of Deasia. This week's hip hop trivia question is: what two famous rappers were about to fight each other in 1993 at Flavor Flav's birthday party? Again, what two famous rappers were about to fight each other in 1993 at Flavor Flav's birthday party? Y'all try to answer that in the comments. We will reveal the answer at the end of the show. With that being said, class is in session.
I want to know to that one.
You know the answer?
We're gonna see. We're gonna see.
I think I know who one of them is as well. I ain't come up
I don't
with
even know. I ain't got no idea.
So that being said, Dr. Butcher, you were part of one of a group that a lot of people may not know about. You were part of a group that was called the Extravagant Three, that included yourself, LL Cool J, and Royal Rich.
That's correct.
So
we all met. I'm sorry. You got it.
Go ahead. That's where I was going. I wanted to know how y'all all met, how the group came about, and the details of that. So go ahead.
I decided to go to high school outside of my neighborhood, the local high schools, and went to the other side of Queens. And they were having a talent show. A buddy of mine named Tislam, I was a young buck, brought me to a school called August Mountain High School. Russell Simmons went there actually as well.
Okay.
And he took me around. I was a little guy, and he was introducing me to everyone and took me to the cafeteria where all the rappers would meet to battle each other. And there was a tall guy in there, light-skinned dude, my man Snow. They called him Romantic Snow. And they said he was the best in the school. So they brought me to him to battle him. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. But we did, and it was epic. Everybody was, shocked to see. But he became like a mentor to me. That's my brother. We just finished talking. But they had a talent show called the Rap Attack, and I joined the talent show. And Snow had a cat down with him named Mikey D. Mikey D was a very well-known rapper throughout Queens, kind of like LL, pre-LL. He had Playboy Mikey D, Ladies Love Kool J. Everybody ran together. Romantic Snow, everybody was on that stuff. So
Okay.
After we did the talent show, Mikey D suggested that me and Rich become a group because, he brought us together to battle. But we admired each other so much, we formed the group, the Extravagant Two. And then when LL heard us, he was in another group, he was like, hey, I want us three to join together and we'll set things off with the Extravagant Three. And that's how that all came about. And we were together for a little while, probably like 8 months prior to him getting set up with Rick Rubin and running off the Def Jam.
Oh yeah. So when was this? This was like 83, 84, something like that.
It was
Yeah,
like
I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, so that was 1 year older than me. Yeah, and
okay.
And it's funny because when he went to Rick Rubin and so forth, we were all supposed to meet at my high school because he and I loved studying records, and we were sitting in his room one day calling every record label every record label had the numbers, and we called every record company, and only the Fantasy 3 label picked up and scheduled a meeting. So we were going to meet at the school to go meet with Silver Fox. But El went down there by himself. He told us, like, I didn't see y'all out there, but me and Rich were sitting on the steps. But, he went down there to Silver Fox, and I think history just took off from there. He did his thing. So, but we all stayed close. It wasn't like, he met them cats and just ditched us. He and I, like we all supported him. So,
Big Snow. Is that Big Snow in the comments right there? Is that
Yeah, that's Big Snow in the comments. Yeah.
Hey, check it out. Big Snow. Hey, Romantic Snow. That shit is so player to me. I'm gonna change my name to Romantic Ra. I swear to God.
Don't have all the guys in high school, bro. He was a player, trust me.
I swear to God. Romantic Ra.
And y'all just watching, make sure y'all like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. So Dr. Butcher, let me ask you this. So you were part of the Extravagant Three, and then you went on to be part of a group called the X-Men that later ended up being called the Executioners. So
Yes.
when you went on to be a part of the group called the X-Men, from what I have studied about you, it was a DJ Clark Kent that y'all kind of had a rivalry with, and so y'all called yourselves the X-Men.
Oh, okay. DC Marvel.
So tell us about that.
So after high school, I was going down the path rapping. I mean, I was with LL, Kool G Rap, Eric B. Rakim, Beatnuts. I was around everybody, but for some odd reason, I started getting more into DJing. I was pursuing that because I came up under the original cut creator, my man AC Vinny Vance, who were really good DJs, Johnny Quest. There was a Disco Twins, there are a host of cats from my neighborhood, and I've always admired the DJ half, that portion of hip hop. And I started pursuing it. I got myself some 1200s and just dedicated a lot of time to the turntables, and a lot of people didn't know. But I met two cats from the neighborhood, Rob Swift and DJ Sinister, and we started all training together and going to a lot of competitions that were pretty much ruled by the Supermen, which was Clark Kent, DJ Scratch, DJ Richie Rich. You had DJ Aladdin, Miz. Aladdin was from California, Miz was from Philly, and a host of others, and so we wanted to have a group to combat them, and we set up the X-Men. But we were all close. Me and Clark, you'll find videos out there where he's talking about me like, hey, that's the X Factor. Leave that to alone. He's a beast. But all of us were beasts, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm better than any one of those guys. Everybody was kind of crazy at that point.
You just mentioned a couple of people from the West Coast. So you mentioned DJ Aladdin from the West Coast.
Yes, sir.
We had a trivia question on the show a few months back. It was, who was the first producer to work with East Coast and West Coast rappers? The answer was DJ Bobcat. So did you know DJ Bobcat and the whole cat, the cut, what was they called? The Cut Cat Crew or whatever they was called?
No, I didn't. I only knew of Bobcat through LL when he first finished the Bad album. He called me and played me a lot of songs from the album, many that never made the album. And I heard Go Cut Creator Go, which stood out to me because the stuff that he's scratching in that record came from the real cut creator. That's what he used to do when me, LL, and all of us would get together and make tapes.
Oh, yeah.
But he used it in that song, and it was from a Richard Pryor concert. Where he was saying, I want to cut. And so that's where Bobcat got that from. Then there was a lot of talk I hear. I know guys were talking about could he beat me in a battle.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I'll beat anyone in New York. And I was like, that would never happen. It would have never happened. He said he battled a lot of guys. My man was like, yeah, you didn't battle Dr. Butcher, yeah.
When the agent first came to us and was like, she could possibly get you on the show, and she said your name. I'm like, I done heard this name before. And I was like, I first heard Dr. Butcher on Kool G Rap, Road to the Riches. I was about maybe 7th, 8th grade, and I used to go to sleep listening to that tape. That's when I first heard your name, Dr. Butcher, man.
Yeah, G-Rap he had like the 2 best rappers in the neighborhood, and he didn't even know I was a DJ at the time. So he wanted, like, Dougie Fresh had 2 DJs, and everybody was having 2 tabless DJs, and he wanted that with Polo. Polo is another one of my mentors, and he had got a guy from the neighborhood named Camille to be Dr. Butcher. Camille had a big record collection. His mother and father owned a record store, and it was known that he had records. So G-Rap thought he would be a good option, and he was a pretty decent DJ, but he didn't want no part of it. So someone told him that I was a DJ. I didn't tell him. And when he found out, he came to the crib and watched me. Then he immediately took me to the studio so Eric B could see me, and they recorded "Kool Is Back" for the second album. And I was just scratching on top of the instrumental, but they kept it. And so at the end of the song, they hear the cuts coming in. That was from me just scratching for Eric B to check me out. But they saved him for the record. Large Professor kept the scratches.
So you bringing up Kool G Rap, Large Professor, man. So were you affiliated with the Juice Crew? Did you come up under Marley Marl, the Juice Crew, and everybody over there?
Not directly, not at all. Marley was a staple on the radio, so everybody came up under Marley Marl. Everybody studied him. But it's odd. I was like a black sheep to the Juice Crew. Only lately did I meet Big Daddy Kane, and he and I live right around the corner from each other in Queens. And Tito from the legendary group The Fearless Four picked me up one day and got Kane. They wanted to get a little tipsy, and I don't drink and smoke. So he's like, "You're the designated driver." We went to the studio, and me and Kane spoke for hours. Like, couldn't believe that all this time we had never met. And so, and it's like a lot of us. Granddaddy IU is a big brother to Snow.
Okay.
A lot of guys, Ace. I haven't met a lot of them, but Kool V, Biz wanted to sign me actually as a rapper. You meet people, and it was like everyone knows Mr. C. We were all in the kind of background. Only the main guys were in the front. A lot of us didn't really get to interact much until we started touring.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
man, we've had this debate on the show, right? And I got excited when you was going to be on the show, man. And I want to get your opinion. I ain't gonna tell you who side on which side. In your opinion, which era was the best, the 80s or 90s? As far as overall hip hop dopeness.
I'm gonna say the 90s, and this is my reasoning. That's not to take anything away from the 80s because that was the precursor to the 90s. But I think by the 90s, everyone started finding their way. Lyricism skipped to another level. Prior to that, you had Marley Marl, you had DLB and the Fearless Four, Kool D, you had touted to be the best above everybody. I mean, he schooled LL and Kool G Rap. So those guys paved the way, and then the next generation took it and ran with it. So then you had the really Kool G Rap, KRS-One, who were late 80s, but went into the 90s, Kane. But I think Rakim, everybody, LL, they took it to another level. And then you had Nas and all these other lyricists following them and really took it to another plane. Wu-Tang, and everybody was just kind of getting really crazy. Eminem, you just had a bunch of cats, even on the West Coast, dudes were just coming out of nowhere with them bars, and it was a great job. In the South, DOC, I mean, there were cats everywhere, So when I moved to Dallas, I don't know the guy's name, but I remember when I first got here, there was a guy on the radio from, I think, the Irving area, and he had just released a song, and the dude was crazy. And unfortunately,
I'm gonna say this though. DOC came out in 89.
Right.
LL came out early 80s. KRS-One came out mid 80s. Rakim came out mid to late. Chuck D, Kool G Rap, MC Stan,
EPMD,
Ice-T, Eazy-E, NWA, Too Short, Big Daddy Kane, right? So this is why I say the 80s to me is slightly better than the 90s. The energy.
But a lot of those guys, not to cut you off, a lot of those guys came out at that time. They didn't hit their peaks until the 90s, though, because labels weren't labels. It was just indie situations, and most of us were just young bucks off the street going at it. So you were just hearing a lot of raw artists, but then we quickly realized there's a lot to making music and becoming popular. So, guys were hot coming out, but they didn't really start making records until the 90s. I think that's when, because technology changed it. You had the early samplers that had no time. Samplers got better. Production got better. Technology got better. There was just so many aspects growing. The labels started seeing the money, the potential of what could be, and started shoving money down everybody's throat as well. So that made guys get a lot better too. You know what I'm saying? Stomachs were being filled. And, I think that opened something up. But you like the rawness. I'm with you. That 85 to 90 era of hip hop too, that was the change of hands.
That's crazy.
To the Kool G
That shit
Rap.
was raw. That shit was raw. It was energetic. It was
raw.
That Public Enemy. That shit was like,
it was crazy.
Hip hop crack.
Crazy.
That shit. That shit was different.
I actually have a two-part question because you brought up technology, and Supreme is also talking about like the energy in the 80s. So there was an evolution that happened between the 80s and the 90s, and it's two parts. So hip hop pretty much started off that fun music, block party music, and it also had an element of revolutionary music in there as well. Also in the 80s, you had people using actual instruments. Later on in the 90s, you have people, they started using the drum machine and things like that. And also the music evolved more into gangster rap. So my two-part question is, one, how did that affect you as a turntablist? And then two, how were the pioneers thinking about the landscape of hip hop when it evolved more towards that gangster rap? Because it take a lot of times, it takes the purists a hard time to grab certain new ideas and different subgenres of music. So first, address the terms. How did the implementation of the drum machine affect you as a turntablist? And then also, what was the energy like when things shifted more towards gangster rap?
I don't think the drum machines affected turntablists at all, because if you look at a guy, Cutmaster DC from the 80s from Brooklyn, he was a rapper / DJ / producer, and probably one of the first tablists out there. DC was a monster on the turntables with sneakers and bikes, cutting up, going crazy. He did stuff over drum machines. Most, UTFO, Mixed Master, Ice, and a lot of cats at that time were over drum machines. So that, I didn't think that did anything. But just when the sampling came about, mixers went from being probably 15 inches wide to shrinking down to like less than 12 inches to make the Gemini 2200s, which brought the turntables closer. Then you had Cash Money with the Philly style, flipping the turntable sideways, which brought the turntables even closer. And as minuscule as that sounds, you wouldn't believe the difference it made and how fast you can catch a record. It was night and day. I have routines that I would do. If I had the turntables in standard form, it was very difficult to do these beat juggles. But if I flipped the turntables, it was light and easy. You could do body tricks and everything with them. So that meant a lot. It did a lot for tablists, having better turntables, better needles, better mixers, and that evolved over time as well. As far as the second question, gangster rap, I think Kool G Rap on the East Coast.
I was about to say G Rap was gangster rap.
But he was influenced directly by NWA and Ghetto Boys. So while we were recording Wanted Dead or Alive, somehow he came across the Ghetto Boys, MTV and all that, and started diving into their music. And you couldn't hear nothing. He would stop the session just to listen to these guys. He was like, inundated with these guys. He loved everything they did. And so you started hearing a change in his style. But he was doing what he was doing, but he started incorporating the movies, the Scarface, and
Scarface is on the album.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
and then you had Gambino's, all of the Italians, all in New York. So that was also in our neighborhood. There was Little Italy in our neighborhood. So we would see all of these dudes in the neighborhood. So it was, I know where he was pulling his ideas from, and he's a big movie head as well. So he just felt he had a zone, and with his lyrical ability, he could take that somewhere else that no one in New York was doing, and that's why he ran with that.
For sure. Hey, before we get on G Rap, I got a question. I was watching one of your interviews, man, and I believe you said that the beat for When They Reminisce Over You was originally done by Large Professor.
Correct. It was for the main Source Breaking Adams album.
So it wasn't Pete Rock who originally did that beat then, huh?
No, but that's not a knock on Pete Rock. It's not a knock on. So what it was, Pete Rock and Large and Q-Tip were like brothers. So at that time, sampling and having record collections was new. Pete Rock absorbed his collection from his dad. Large jumped into that world through our buddy Paul C, another producer who was, a legendary but got murdered. So he started his collection as he started producing, and they would share records. And they had a thing where they would find a sample and everybody would go home and chop it up to see who could rock it the best. And it was a thing where Large came across that, chopped it up. He would go to Pete's house probably every other day, sharing his tracks, whatever he was doing, and shared it with him. Pete heard it, he did his version, and he used it because he was working on their album as well. And there was no beef about it. It was just hey, I took this. I mean, the same thing happened with Buster, the Wu High record. So me, him, and Large were in the studio where they were doing a Sprite commercial, and he had just left his group and wasn't sure about his single, and he played Wu Ha for us, and we was like, that's it, that's your single. But he didn't think so. He was like, I don't know, man, Old Dirty has it. They're going to be comparing me to Old Dirty. I don't know about this record. Large's man Rashad produced it. So he calls Rashad and says, yo, what's going on with that track? And Rashad's like, I don't know, Buster's all over the place. He doesn't know if he's going to use it or not. So Large, knowing the record, put together and played it and started freestyle rapping over it. He wasn't using it, but he loved the track a lot. So he did his own version of it. Buster heard it and had a fit. He thought that, the rumor back then that Large was going to put it on the Breaking Adams album, but that wasn't the case. And he came to one of the studio sessions really upset. And Large was like, yo, dude, I was just having fun with the record. That's what we do. If you're using it, I asked you. If you're using it, it's yours. It's no big deal. Like, I have 1,000 other tracks I can use, but I really like the track. So if you're not using it, I'll use it. But if you are, live with it. And he made it his first single, and it took off. It worked out for him.
Man, that's some good history right there. Didn't know that either.
I didn't know that.
Yep, absolutely.
So switching gears to staying on Large Professor, but switching gears to Illmatic. So were you in some of those sessions when Large Professor was working with Nas and
yeah, and I was also with Large and Nas when we did the remix for what's the first It Ain't Hard to Tell. So I was in Large house, we put the beat together, and then we shot right to the studio and recorded it. Just me, him, and Nas.
Oh yeah.
So
give us a production credit. Some production credits that you got that what you think we don't know about.
I don't know, man. I've done stuff with Fubu. I mean,
I brought them up on the last show.
Project called Triumphant. I produced that for my man Matt Don.
Okay.
Early on, I was just doing a lot of scratching for a lot of artists. The Beat Nuts, Youngsters, Chiali. I mean, just
Chiali, right?
Yeah, TLC. I mean, their manager Steve Stout at the time. He was from my neighborhood, and we had a great relationship. So he would bring me in and set up their show tapes and all types of stuff.
Out of all the things that I miss the most about old school hip hop, is cutting and scratching.
Yeah,
I miss that the most. I miss it, man. I think UGK was the last group to implement a lot of cutting and scratching in their music.
UGK.
That was
Yep.
Because That's what hip hop
Listen
started.
to UGK records. Pimp C used to cut and scratch all that.
I mean, I ain't saying he did, but that was the last one. That was the last
I
one.
ain't heard nobody since, bro.
Well,
It's
Premier,
chopping
you
and
have a lot of
screwing. It's chopping and screwing like
no.
part of like something similar to
Scratching.
like scratching, like
No.
chopping and screwing
Chopping
the track.
and screwing refers
Could
to
that be in the
slowing down
same
vocals.
vein?
No, it's
Nah.
slow down the vocals. That's all.
But they scratch and cut and chop and screw, so they do it. But it's two different things.
So let me ask you this. What was your first record that you could remember that you produced for Kool G Rap?
It was a remix. He brought me in to remix one of his records, and I don't remember what that record was, but he had Cold Chillin' had just signed on with Sony, and he was in Battery Studios, or Chum King Studios actually, in the city. And he called me in to come do a remix, and the label heads were there, and they were impressed with what I did, with what I produced at the moment, and asked me to produce the whole album, his upcoming 4, 5, 6 album. So at that same time, he got into some beef with some guys in the street, and a death warrant was put on his head.
What?
And
they put some bread on his head.
Yeah, they put some bread on his head, and it caused issues where he really couldn't write. That was like the first time for me being around him for many years, he had like writer's block and really couldn't write. So, but he had bought Marley Marl studio, and for the second album, or third album, me, a guy named Naughty Shorts, and the Beatnuts were producing his third album in his house using the studio he bought from Marley Marl, which is Marley's original studio. So he was recording every day. So luckily he had a lot of songs that were never released, and 4, 5, 6 is pretty much a bunch of unreleased songs that I took the vocals and remixed, and some of the other producers, and got other producers to come in and do the same.
Did you produce the track with Nas? What was that? Fast Life? Did you produce that one?
Fast Life. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Man,
brought the producer. I didn't produce it.
It's a video out right now of the Locks, and the interviewer is asking them which borough has produced the most talent, right? And we have a Facebook group, and I asked a question. Me personally, I say Queens. So right now, the Facebook group is a real battle between Brooklyn and Queens. So which borough do you think has produced the most talented MCs?
Well, I'm from both boroughs, so it's hard to say, but it's hard, man. I mean, you got the knowns and you got, your Biggies, your Jay-Z, your Brooklyn guys, and the Queens. I mean, you got a list: G Rap, Nas, Pharaoh. You got Graph, who never really blew up, but Graph is probably a terror that nobody wants to touch.
Q-Tip, LL,
Tragedy.
I don't put Q-Tip in that category. Q-Tip is a dope producer, but lyrically, he's not. I wouldn't do that to Q-Tip.
You got Tragedy.
Yeah, you got there's been a ton of dudes coming out of Queens, man. And Mikey D, like I said, so there's a lot of dudes that people don't know of. The neighborhood knew of them, but they were tough. They just, didn't really get out there. But some hard dudes. And same thing with Brooklyn, man. You had a lot of cats coming out of Brooklyn too, man. A lot of dope dudes, man. But I think
it's Queens for sure.
I think everybody respects everybody. They knew, because coming up in the 80s, it was always Bronx and Manhattan. Brooklyn and Queens rarely got noticed. And then you had Long Island.
That's true.
You had this unknown cat named Rakim sitting in Long Island who just showed up from nowhere and just blew everybody away. So it became Melvin Boyd at some point, but he was with Queens. He ran with Queens and stuff, through Eric B.
So you brought up Rakim. So let's get on Rakim, Eric B and Rakim for a second. I think I heard in one of your interviews, you were saying that you actually produced some of those tracks for Rakim, and Eric B didn't actually.
No, Eric did the production. So that production, the first project, was pretty much Eric B's ideas, I believe, between him and Rakim. Marley, they worked with Marley to put it together. I don't think Eric knew how to how to put samples and things together. Rakim had more experience with that. He had his brother Stevie Blast who played keyboards. He was a monster on the keyboards. But that's where Marley came in. Marley could take records. Pretty much everybody in the Juice Crew would go to Marley with vinyl and show the records they wanted to use, and Marley would put the samples together and program some drum machines underneath. And later on, everybody started doing it themselves. And that was key with Eric being Rakim as well. Like, Eric had a relationship with Marley. He went there, they had an idea, they put it together. The record came out and blew up. And then, you know, for the second part, I don't think Marley had anything to do with the album, though. When they went with the album, that was pretty much Eric and Rod in the studio, and the engineers and Power Play helped put that together. I don't think Marley was involved at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where you, because we've heard the term ghost producing before. So were you somewhat of a ghost producer, or do you know other producers who were like ghost producers behind other people's names, like DJ Polo or something like that?
Polo started me. There was a cat in my neighborhood actually from East Elmhurst, and I forget dude's name, but he was probably the biggest ghost producer I know of, who did most of Bad Boys hits from the Benjamins on down. This dude produced so many records that you would not believe. He did, you know, Ron Lawrence and all those cats are from my neighborhood as well. Kid and Play. I mean, we have a host of people from the neighborhood, but this guy was in Herbie Lovebuck's studio that produced Salt and Pepper, had a studio, and he rented out, and he was just sitting there knocking the beats out and send them over to Puffy, and then Puffy would maybe get Stevie J and these cats to play on it, but the beats originated with him. But he never wanted attention. He just got his paycheck and kept producing and kept moving.
Hey, as long as he was getting that check, I guess it was all good. Shit.
There's a lot of that in the business, man. I mean, you know, Dre had a ton. And then coming up, I think, you know, most people were just fascinated being in the studio with artists, you know what I'm saying? Especially if it was somebody big like G Rap. We had tons of people in the studio with us every single night. You know, Large was producing. I was more of an assistant, being told to, you know, get into production, but, you know, I was the man on the turntables. But I helped out with a lot of ideas. I would go pull records, put stuff together, show it to Large. He would sample it up and do things. I think the One and Dead or Alive remix, if you look at that, you'll see it's me, G Rap, and Large on there who put that together in a quiet session after the album was released. Yeah. And from there, Large gave me a SP1200, and I just started working. You know, Polo was like, yo, get into it, man. You got in here, and that's where I took off from there.
So let me ask you this question, because I know you were still around when Jay-Z and Nas were beefing with each other. So you have like,
yeah.
You were what?
Touring with Jay-Z at the time.
Okay, wow. So this is my question to you regarding that, because you got these two boroughs, these two guys from different boroughs. You got from Brooklyn, Queens, they going at it, right?
Right.
How was the energy in the streets then? Like, how did it impact the streets?
So that was a funny thing, because though it was Brooklyn, Queens, you got to realize Jay-Z came out with Jaz-O, who was a Queens rapper. So that, you know, he put Jay-Z on his path. Jaz-O was a beast as well. He put Jay-Z on his own path. And he and Nas, all these guys, everybody was cool. When Akineyle came out, you know, who I was running with and touring with Jay-Z with, you know, I Put It In Your Mouth and all that stuff out there. I was producing his old album. Jay-Z used to open for Akineyle. So Dame Dash was managing Akineyle at the time, and they brought us out. And Irv Gotti was DJing for Jay-Z. And then when I started coming out, one day he mentioned that I was Dr. Butcher, and they didn't realize who I was. I stayed quiet, and when they found out, it was like a big thing, because Kool G Rap was Jay-Z's favorite artist. So they were like, yo, Memphis Bleak, all these guys were like, dude, I have no idea what G Rap means to Hov, you know? So the beef was there, but there was a mutual respect amongst lyricists, you know, like it was cool. But at the time, Hov started messing with all the Philly dudes. So he was even, I think, kind of losing Brooklyn to a degree. Another key thing is that me and Clark Kent from the Superman produced Jay-Z's first album that nobody heard. Clark came to me and was like, hey, you got the best rapper in the streets right now. It'll be crazy. I have an up-and-coming rapper who I believe is going to be the next best rapper in the street named Jay-Z. Would you like to work with me? I was like, sure. So I just gave him a bunch of tracks. He picked out what he wanted. I gave him the disc. He recorded, and then one day he's like, yo, I said, how's it going? He said, it's not going. this dude is making so much money doing what he's doing, he don't want to record anymore. So he stopped the album and never got released. But he and I were the first two guys producing Jay-Z.
Damn. Oh yeah.
So when the beef started, it was Akineille's getting blamed. What people don't know, Akineyle was in the center of it because we were touring with him. Dame Dash was Akineille's manager. There was some stuff going on that I really didn't know what was going on, and then it just all took off. And you know, Nas's crew kind of stepped away from him. There was a lot of tension in the street, dudes. There a lot of beef. And seeing Biggie and Pac getting murdered, dudes didn't really want to go there. You know, it was like, okay, we just lost a couple of legends. Dudes didn't really want to see these two dudes going at it and something take off because it was going to take off. You know, you had, you know, Queensbridge, Queens dudes, you know, then you have Brooklyn and Philly dudes running together, Harlem cats running, you know, the Dame was running with. It was about to get ugly, you know. So it was a quiet time. Hip hop, you know, I know in New York, man, it was quiet. Like everybody was on pins and needles. But Nas was considered to be the underdog. So he was going at home. He was not backing down for anything. So much so, they said he had songs. Bronx told me he had songs like either the version you hear on the radio is not the first version. There was another version where he was so disrespectful, the label wouldn't release it. He had to go in and redo it. And that's the version. Yeah, they said he went crazy. Just like Hove, when Pac did that song talking about, you know, Jay-Z and threw his name out there, Hove had something for Pac and when he performed at the Apollo and lit Pac up, destroyed him. But Pac got murdered that week, so he never put it out. But he lit Pac up. And, you know, then after that, you kind of realize, yo, this is just music. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So Jay-Z dropped the Takeover, and then Nas dropped Ether.
Yeah.
And then Jay-Z dropped Super Ugly and the one off the Black album. Who do you think won the battle musically?
Jay-Z.
I agree.
I have to give it to
too.
But what happened was, like I said,
A lot of people say Ether, though. A lot of people say Ether, but
if you go back and
we all agree.
Takeover was better
we all agree. I agree. 100%. I agree.
I mean,
Takeover for sure.
I love Nas. Nas is my dude. I was supposed to be Nas's DJ. Nas sat in the studio with us, doing One and Dead All Out. He and I built a really solid relationship. Nas is my dude. Ether was crazy. Hove was just crazy at the time too. But again, I think Nas was viewed as the underdog, and Queens was really behind Nas crazy. So just to hear that come out, everyone went crazy for it. You know what I'm saying? And I think what also happened, which was more important, is that Hove didn't respond to Ether. And so his team was embarrassed. Dame was pissed off because he disappeared. He just disappeared. No one could find the dude for like 3 weeks. No, he wasn't taking calls. He just totally disappeared on cats. And they took offense to that because, you know, they felt like they looked like punks in the street now. And that wasn't cool in their minds. You know, so a lot of things were setting off left and right. You know what I'm saying? And actually, we came back from the road and I had got calls that Alicia Keys wanted me to DJ for her on tour. And Nas at the same time, Akineyle was going to go on the road with Nas. And I was rehearsing with him and Clark Kent. We were all in the studio setting up Nas' show, performing, but I didn't go out. And then I moved to Dallas right after that. Things were getting a little crazy in New York. And I was like, yo, I'm tired of this. And I came to Dallas.
So let me ask you this, because it's interesting that you said that Nas was the underdog in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But in the South, we all listen to Nas. In the South, Jay-Z was the underdog to us. And it's interesting the way that we hear music and the way that we critique artists, because Nas was the one that the South related to more when they came out versus Jay-Z, because you know, it took a while for us to gravitate towards Jay-Z.
Me being from the South, I disagree with her assessment, but go ahead.
Well, he's not from the dirty South. He's from the Southwest. He's from Texas. I'm from Memphis. I'm from the dirty. It's a difference.
Well, Memphis is really not dirty.
I'm talking about down there in the mud at the bottom of the map. That's what I'm talking about.
Memphis ain't at the bottom.
Memphis is definitely not dirty.
We're not talking about you people in Texas that was cripping on a horseback. We're talking about the dirty South, right? So in the dirty South, because I'm gonna tell you something, when it comes to music in the dirty South, and you probably can attest to this with you know, how the things where the music scene was in New York, you kind of everybody listened to their local artists. So in Memphis, where I'm from, we had so many artists in Memphis to where it was hard to penetrate that market because we were used to a certain sound, and you know, we saw our local celebrities. You know, I've rubbed elbows with damn near everybody that rapped in Memphis. You get what I'm saying? So it's a difference when you have to have the music funneled to you, like someone that grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, like Supreme Rock. Ain't no artist coming up out of Fort Worth, Texas, so he's not understanding the difference between having a real hip hop scene in your city. We had a real hip hop scene. You get what I'm saying? So he don't count in this part of the conversation. This is not his part of the show.
Oh, I definitely count because I wasn't secluded and stuck in the Memphis closet of 3-6 Mafia and
yeah,
playing fly all night.
You don't even want to go down there because I don't want to give you no Memphis history because this ain't about me. You get on some out. So
all I'm saying is, if you was into hip hop, of course everybody gravitated to Nas first because he came out first. He dropped the classic first. The first two Nas albums was classic to me. And then Jay-Z came along. And if you was a part of the hustler crowd, player crowd, then you gravitated to Jay-Z. If you was more of the, I ain't gonna say backpack, but not as player, not as hustler, then you gravitated to Nas.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
but overall, collectively, the South, the actual South, not the Southwest, but collectively, the South really looked at Nas as that guy. You know, like
emphatically no.
Because the thing is to be Nas, let's be very clear. We listened to East Coast rappers, right? So Nas wasn't the only East Coast rapper that we listened to. So it isn't just Jay-Z, Nas, and you know, that was the only East Coast rappers that we listened to. But when we're talking about the comparison of Nas and Jay-Z, I'm speaking towards the fact that Dr. Butcher said that Nas was the underdog, where else in the South, Nas was the top dog. So it's interesting on how we are listening to that music and how we assess those artists. Because to be honest with you, the South really didn't take to Jay-Z until he did Big Pimpin' with UGK.
Hey,
100% right.
I was just about to bring that up, but go ahead, Butcher.
What you say, Dr. Butcher? What you say? I was 100% right.
Yeah, because we would do a lot of shows where in the South, got no audience. I mean, we would walk in events in the arena and have 5 people there, or just colleges. Like either they didn't know him or just didn't think he was going to show up. I remember being in Ohio.
Same thing happened to Nas when he did shows down here.
Let him finish saying what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we walked in Ohio, walked the stage, and the local artists were there. They were killing it. The crowd's going crazy. We're like, okay, we got a good crowd. Hove gets on stage and they throwing water bottles. Not responding. Akineyle gets up there, does put it in your mouth. They just standing there, ice grilling everybody. Like, and we would experience that. So Hove challenged himself. Like he didn't feel any type of way about that. We knew they were trying to get access to those markets. The southern markets were tough. And that slick New York hustle talk, they really weren't buying into it. So that's when I guess Beyonce, whoever he was dealing with, suggested the UGK stuff. And that worked. When he did the Big Pimpin', they put him on another platform and everything just took off from there. Because he already had the East. He knew what to do with the East. That challenge was figuring out the West, which G-Rap, I mean, that was difficult for everybody. Even when I got in Texas, people were telling me they didn't like Nas whatsoever. Like, he raps too fast. I don't like him. They didn't like Rakim. He raps too fast. LL was probably the only guy that I can say, anyway he went, everybody loved him. And that's why he's respected as the GOAT, because artists know that that's hard to accomplish. That is not an easy thing to do, to have every city respect you the same way as your hometown does. And he was one of the few. Public Enemy, some Run DMC, certain groups, a lot of people couldn't do that. And that was a hard lesson,
Well, I remember going to the Fresh Fest tour as a child,
Right.
and it will be LL, Run DMC, Fat Boys, Houdini, and those stadiums used to be packed, and they made most of their money in the South because we wasn't getting the mixtapes. When we wanted they wasn't playing on the radio. So when they came, everybody went to the concerts.
It was major. It was major. But yeah, but speaking of Jay-Z and like Reasonable Doubt, like when Reasonable Doubt first came out, people weren't really on it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm from Detroit, so I think the comparison with Nas and Jay-Z up here, it was pretty much even. I'll get a slight edge to Nas, you know what I'm saying? But because I think Jay-Z, like I said, when Reasonable Doubt, people weren't really fucking with it like that. Like that Streets is Watching, you know what I'm saying? Around that time when all that shit came out, motherfuckers weren't really fucking with Jay-Z like that.
East Coast was, not South though. Yeah, South like to dance, they like to move. New York like hard street stuff. So Hov at the top. See, and understandably, he's coming out as this new rapper. He's trying to make his bones on the lyrical level. He wants to prove who he is. So you go through a few albums of doing that, then you want to take it to another level and really start selling records. So once they got their distribution deal with Def Jam, they knew it was time to make a change. And Dame was running around trying to get MTV on board because they knew it was time to go to the next level. If you're trying to be Puffy and compete with Bad Boy and Dr. Dre and them, you got to step the game up. And so that's what happened at that point. They knew it was time.
So I'm not gonna let you skim through what you said when we was talking about Jay-Z working with UGK, because you made mention about whoever he was dealing with at the time kind of put a battery in his back to get him to work with UGK. At that time, I believe he was dealing with Beyonce, and Beyonce is from Houston.
Right.
So basically what you're saying is whoever he was dealing with, and we're going to, I don't remember exactly when they started dealing with each other, but I think it was around the time Big Pimpin' came out. I'm not sure. But whoever he was dealing with, whatever woman Jay-Z was dealing with at the time, convinced him to do the song with UGK. Is that what you're saying?
Or other people around. See, Hov knew he needed something that would reach the South. I mean, he was touching everything else, and he needed something. So when Irv Gotti, started putting out his artists, DMX and everybody, Ja Rule and them, Hov was jumping on that because they were touching the South. Irv Gotti was aware that there was going to be a barrier there, so he was already making music that would touch the South because he had the producer Seven down with him, and Seven is from like Houston or something. So he had his music a blend of East Coast Southern style music, and Hov was jumping on that from the giddy up. And then he knew he wanted to really solidify who he was. He needed a group like UGK to do that. So like G Rap started messing with the Ghetto Boys. You know what I'm saying? They all respected each other. That door. Scarface and them, they love each other. So you had to make that connection, but it had to be a legit connection. Something mutual that didn't sound like it was being forced.
Right. Because because that Juvenile High remix, that to me, that's on force. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, see? And you hear a lot. Even Lil Wayne would do things with East Coast artists that sound super forced. He wasn't comfortable on it. I'm like, dude, you're out of your league over here. Like, these dudes are gonna kill you on this right here. But people had him believing he can get on anything, and he couldn't. So when you stay in your zone, he's king in his zone. But everybody has to watch that. You know what I'm saying? Even hearing Nas on trap music, I'm not in love with that right now. That's something else. I love Nas, Crack Masters, Primo, East Coast stuff. But I know he's trying to grow. I understand what it is he's trying to do. I'm just not there with it yet. I want him to
how do you think about? Let me ask you this, because I'm one of those people who feel as though Nas, he got held to high esteem early on in his career. You got Illmatic, Still Is Written. Those two albums are without a doubt classic albums, right? Yeah. Here lately, so Nas was stamped in hip hop a long time ago. Right. So here lately, you got Nas finding lost tapes, and he giving it to us. Now you got Nas, whoever the king is, got all of these diseases 3 times. Probably need at this point they need to figure out what the disease is and give that man some antibiotics. And my thing when it comes to Nas is this. Nas' work recently, to me, is like a slap in the face. I feel as though Nas just give us anything and just start playing and just put anything out there because he know he is stamped, he's solidified in hip-hop history. He's always going to be placed on the Mount Rushmore of hip-hop. How do you feel about the recent music that Nas has been putting out? Do you feel as though he's really been taking it serious, or he's just been playing around in the studio?
I'm not going to say he's playing around. I think it's the thing where he's working with Hit Boy, who's a young up-and-coming producer, so he can connect to the new youth. You know, there's a new generation, Generation X.
Right.
That's the big music fans, and to get to them, you know, you got to work with Generation X producers. So I think that's his take. I don't think he's completely abandoning the golden hip hop because that's his roots. You know, maybe he's not being presented with what he needs to hear. You know what I'm saying? That's a hint to you, Nas. Get at me. So I'm just thinking that's part of it. I haven't really delved too much into his latest projects, to be honest with you. And the things I've heard, I haven't really been impressed. Not even with the Kanye album. Like, I listened to that stuff, and I'm just kind of shaking my head because I feel like for the producers, I'm working with Nas. I'm going to give him some joints. But me being there from the onset, knowing where it was going, these dudes were like digging the, you know, Tip and the track masters. Dudes were trying to give him the best because they knew who he was. I mean, you got to realize what made Nas jump out amongst everybody is the fact that Rakim was kind of going away. And it was like, okay, who's going to be that next guy? And then shows up Nas in an instant. And it's like, what the hell? Because he, even with us, I didn't hear him like that. It was like, I didn't hear that Nas until Illmatic dropped. And I was like, yo, bro, where did that come from? Like, I mean, he just went from here to here, like overnight, literally. It just, he went somewhere else. And so everyone was like, oh my God, this dude is a monster. So he just woke hip hop up again, you know, and I think that's what everyone holds on to. So hearing him move the rawness of those beats and his rapping to kind of where he is now, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I know what he's saying. You missed that. You missed that.
I don't like Magic. I didn't like Nasir. I mean, I didn't dislike him, but I just expect more from Nas. And I personally like 444 better than all them latest Nas albums.
Wow.
Hey, so before we get off this, before we get off Jay-Z and Nas, I think you spoke about the tour, and I think Foxy Brown was on the tour, and she ended up getting kicked off the tour or something like that. And you said Kanye was on that tour too, right?
No, not Kanye.
Okay.
Irv Gotti, like, you know, he would bring, you know, his crew out to just kind of watch and study performing. People don't realize that's an art. Performing like DJing, you have to learn your audience. You have to know how to react at a moment's notice. So he would bring Ja Rule out a lot just so he can study what was going on and become a student prior to getting released as an artist. But yeah, he would bring Foxy out, but I think there became some issues with money. You know, when the record ain't no nigga blew up, you know, she kind of started wanting more money than they were willing to pay her. So one particular show, she didn't show up, and you know, Hove just started on her verses, her parts. He just put the mic to the audience, and all the females in the crowd knew the record, so they would perform her verse. And after the show, he was like, "Oh, we figured it out. She's not coming back with us." You know, like, I'm gonna let the audience sing her parts, and I'm gonna keep that money in my pocket. And she never came out with us after that. There was no. I didn't see her since. Yeah, that was the last time.
It was a money thing,
because we have Not You in the comments, and he is, shout out to you, Not You. I hope you like the video and share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those of you that's watching, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share the video as well. So he has a lot of comments about Biggie, and he basically was saying we jumped to the Jay-Z era and we missed how Biggie and Mace was popping in the South. I don't think that this particular person is from the South making that comment. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna go on that assumption. But since he would like for us to talk about Biggie, I do have a question regarding Biggie, because we actually a couple of weeks ago we had G Gutter on the show, which is one of Biggie's homeboys. He came up with
C Gutter.
Mentioned him in his song "What's Beef" and everything. there was a rumor that Biggie got his name from a rapper in the South. And they basically were saying that he stole the name. So did you hear anything about Biggie actually taking the name from a rapper in the South? Was it Supreme? Was it Notorious? What was the
actually? Not only did he take his name, he stole the Juicy song too. The brother name is the Notorious B1, and he's from Mississippi. And it's not a rumor. He claims he making allegations that Biggie stole his song and his name.
I had never heard anything about that. But to Biggie's point, I don't know about the name, but as far as the song, Puffy presented that song. Juicy was presented to him by Puffy. Biggie didn't want the song. Puffy forced him to make the song.
Right. That's what I always said.
If anybody knew about that, that would have been Puff. That is not on Big. I would say that. As far as the name, it fit him. He could have heard it. Somebody else could have heard of the dude and kind of threw the name on him. I have no clue. Biggie was out a long time. It wasn't. He was out a while doing stuff, but he didn't pop off until he got with Bad Boy. And Puff had a vision for him, and that's what took him to the next level. He was more in the underground hip hop, just doing his thing.
For sure. Hey, so let me ask you this. I know you worked with the Track Masters at one point, right?
Yeah. So Mark Jordan was the manager. Yeah, he was the manager of the Track Masters, and my partner at the time, CJ Moore, had a good relationship with Mark Jordan. And so he had some of our music. We know we will always get to a certain level and things would just not happen. I mean, that's the name of the game. But Mark believed in our music, it was on par with Track Masters, what they were doing. So he took our music in. And I believe Nas was just completing one of his albums, and he was hanging out with Nori that day. And so Nas heard this track from us that he really wanted. Mm-hmm. But his budget had just closed, and they were talking to Sony, trying to get them to open the budget just so he can record this record. And Sony said no. So before they left, Nori hearing the track, he was like, let me hear that again. I want that. Don't get rid of that. And he took the song. But he didn't realize that I had me from that track in Miami like 3 months prior, because Nori's from that neighborhood as well. So, but he was riding high on the what songs, I don't think he paid attention to the music. And Mark, knowing that I knew Nori, he was like, hey, Butcher, y'all have to go to the studio, lay the music, and get out of the studio. If Nori sees you, he's going to have a fit, because he's under the auspice that Tony Polk produced the song, not knowing that y'all were part of the Trackmaster team. And so we went and tracked it, and just as we were leaving, Nori walks in the door. He's like, Butch, what up? He said, I kept it moving. And Mark was like, yo, dude, I got an earful. He was like, what is Butch and CJ doing in the studio right now? And he was like, you didn't know they were the Trackmasters, He's like, I thought Tony Polk did that. He said, no, it doesn't matter. Tony Polk was the face of the Trackmasters. They didn't do all the music. They had a crew of producers, Spanador, and all these other cats that did the music. So he was like, yo, they're not the only producers, So he sucked it up and was going to do the record, which was going to be a single. Him and R. Kelly was supposed to do the song together. R. Kelly heard it, and Jive, they were all on Jive. Both were signed to Jive at the time. It was like, yo, I'm in. Let's do this record. What happened was R was working on his album, coming off I Believe I Can Fly. He was working on his new album and wouldn't leave his compound. He told Nori to come to Chicago to record the song. Nori was like, no, you coming to New York to record. And they started beefing, and the song never got done.
So,
and the label was he wasn't even on the label anymore. Like Nori wasn't even on Jive anymore. So I don't know if it's something not getting that done, but there would have been a powerhouse of a record. Like it would have been definitely probably the biggest record he had.
Damn. So you produced a track that was supposed to be a single for Nori and R. Kelly.
Yes, R. Kelly was going to be on the song with Nori. He agreed to do the record with Nori. Trackmasters pulled the two together. When they heard it, they was like, "This is a bona fide hit," because it wasn't my typical gutter underground hard stuff. It had a very melodic tone to it that was definitely radio friendly. And when they heard it, they was like, "R. Kelly has to be on this record." And Jive, that was their biggest artist. They was like, "Yeah, we're going to make that happen." And then the two just couldn't get in the studio. They were, I don't know. It just never happened, unfortunately. I just knew I was
Man.
about to do that news, but it didn't go down that way. So
Oh, that would have been fire.
Right.
Let me ask you this: were you around when 50 Cent came out with his diss track to everybody? How to rob?
So
were you around then?
Yes, I lived. When I tell you I lived in Jamaica Estates, and Kane lived around the corner from me. I lived in a town co-op, and 50's crew lived in my building. So his main dude Prince was there, you know. So and they were desperately trying to get me on 50's project, which I kicked myself in the butt for. I was so consumed with the FUBU project, I didn't submit to the project. But I love it. I mean, I love Fifth was one of my favorite artists, and when he hit the scene, dudes knew it was trouble. That dude was coming with a vengeance, and luckily he was with the Track Masters. He was with Jam Master Jay first, who kind of really groomed him. He was with Black Hand. He started through Black Hand. I think he got to Jam Master Jay, and then ended up with the Track Masters. But all those scenarios fell apart, and then he got shot. And he came back, you know, he got in the gym, got cut up, put out his mixtape, which probably blew up bigger than any record coming out of New York. His mixtape was the hottest thing in New York at the time. And then that's when Eminem and Dre reached out to him and signed him.
Damn.
Yeah, because the Get Rich or Die Trying was one of the most highly anticipated albums at that time. And when it was an instant classic.
Instant classic. See, because again, he was groomed. So Fifth was all about writing songs, and he knew what the public wanted to hear. And so he put together a masterpiece. And that's why if you listen to Eminem talk about him in the studio, they were all intimidated by him, because they said this dude walked in the studio within 2 weeks, recorded like 40 songs, hits. Most artists will give you maybe 3 singles. This dude had 40 singles. And that's like, if you're an artist, that's beyond intimidating to hear. You know, somebody walk in the studio and record single after single after single and just blow everybody's mind. You know, like dude was on a train that no one could catch. Like he was killing people.
Well, you gotta think 50 and Kanye West, they had that battle about when they dropped who was gonna sell the most records. In order for you to be able to go toe to toe with a Kanye West, you that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
you know, like
50 been that guy.
You that guy, because even when it happened, when they put out that bet, it was one of those things where nobody was saying, "Oh, he's crazy," or "This person is crazy," or "It's going to be a landslide." That was highly anticipated as well, because it could have went either which way, because they were so huge.
Exactly.
And Kanye West was one of those people that you didn't want to go up against. And for 50 to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm about to sell more than you," and he was confident in that.
Oh yeah.
It goes to show how powerful he was at that particular time.
Yeah, and Fifth wasn't backing down to anybody. So as much as cats love Kanye, he was nothing to Fifth. So Fifth was like, "I'm gonna knock this dude out of my way. You're a pin. I'm the bowling ball. Get out of my way, dude." Like he wasn't letting anyone stop him, and he was determined to do it. You know, he had a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately, he lost that battle. You know, but he
lost that one. He lost that one, but he done won the war to me.
Yeah,
look at him now. Look at him now.
I mean, Fifth's first album did 10 million records. You know what I'm saying? The second one did 5 million records. You know, so they were all doing their thing, and a lot of it they know at the end of the day it was really no beef. They were hyping each other up. They were getting publicity for both. Which helps sell both albums, you know. So
exactly, because they're both marketing geniuses anyway.
Exactly,
they're both marketing geniuses.
That's what it was. And so the public thought it was beef. They got all absorbed with it. Them two knew they were playing games, and it helped both. They both thrived with that. So it was great for both.
Yeah. Hey, so we just talked about 50. We done talked about a lot of great Queens MCs, man. So give me your top 5, man. Give me your top 5 Queens MCs, man. I was gonna say number 1, but I ain't gonna put you out there like that. Give me your top 5, man.
I'm gonna just go with just because I know a lot of my brothers are watching this. So all of my dudes that didn't get out there, Snow, Mikey D. There's a lot of cats that didn't get there who should have been there with everybody else.
Peace to everybody in the chat. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got you got LL, of course. Let me see. LL, Pharaoh, Nas. I gotta throw Graph out there, even though Graph is not as successful as those cats. Graph is an absolute monster. And the fifth person I would say, I do Akineyle. I know Akineyle doesn't get a lot of respect. You wasn't running up on Akineyle, bro. Our rappers will tell you weren't running up on Akineyle. The general public may not know that.
Akineyle was a shit. Akineyle was a shit back in the day.
Yeah, he was a monster. He was not playing. So I'm gonna throw Akineyle in as well. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah. Hey, we got a question from the chat real quick. Big Snow says, "What's your favorite pieces of equipment, and do you use to make beats, and what program do you use? If you would like."
Big Snow, my brother. That's my big bro. So I started out with the SPs. I mean that technology advanced. So like everybody else, I started out with the SP 950s. In that era, then I gravitated to the new units, which was an EMU E4 Ultra. Akai was putting out the S5000s and the 6000 rack mount units. I was using the EMU unit, but I was using an Akai MPC 2000 Excel to operate it, to do my sequencing. And then sometime around 2015, I lived with that unit. I loved it, but it died on me. And at that point, I realized it was time. The software was there. I was really interested in it, but the computers couldn't support it for a while. But when that happened, I knew everything had picked up. The computers were ready to deal with software. So I just jumped in and I kind of gravitated towards native instruments. So nowadays, my whole setup is all native. Machine, keyboards, things like that.
So let me ask you this. You have been on tour with different artists. You've been in the studio with different artists. You've worked with a slew of artists. Mm-hmm. Who was your favorite artist to actually work with and create magic with?
So it's just that it's hard to say. So MF Grimm, he's crazy. I mean, MF Grimm is like a Tupac / Biggie. He just had books, and when he got shot and paralyzed, he would just come to my house. I would play beats, and we would kind of battle. I would play beats, and he would pull out all these books until he found a song that would fit the track. And so we would kind of compete with that. But he was incredible with hooks. So when we were working on the 456 album, like I said, G Rap had writer's block. He couldn't do anything. So I brought Grimm up there to kind of do Shit Ain't Never Gonna Change. That was his hook. And then Money on My Brain, I put the track together. They wanted to do a second song, and he just went through his pages and found a hook. And, he made those songs, and I wish I would have brought him in for the whole album, because he was, when it comes to that stuff, he was incredible with that. But Akineyle is incredible too. Like, most artists want to sound like everybody else. So Akineyle and Grimm, you could play them weird things and their minds start going. And, they don't want to sound like anyone. They want to see, they challenge themselves to write to odd music and do something different that most rappers wouldn't do. With G Rap, he and I love that gutter sound. So when he moved to Arizona, he was working with someone who was talented, but he wasn't a hip hop dude. He was just a multi-instrumentalist, the cat he had out there. But he needed the gutter, and I sent him some music. We always connected that way. He just went on a writing frenzy, and we ended up doing the Roots of Evil project. And that's how that set off. So it's different for everybody. They got inspired by different things. I would get inspired by them. It was fun. Like, fun in many. The G Rap is Richard Pryor in the studio. That dude is the funniest dude you can be around. There's nothing but jokes and laughs in the studio with that guy. So we all love those moments because we knew we were just gonna laugh the whole night, along with recording and stuff. And Akineyle was kind of the same, Grimm was more serious, but I enjoyed it. Large Professor was crazy working in there with him because his brain was just on fire. Like, he could, he's tapping it out. He'd be on the SP 1200 looking like a robot, going. You turn on his noise, and then the tractor play. He was like a monster. I'm like, what is this dude doing?
This is a good question. With you being a producer, Dr. Butcher, this is a good question. Who are your top 10 producers?
My crew is specialist. Those are my top 10. Jay Swift is one of them. That's why he's asking you.
Oh, yes.
He's the first star. Static.
Oh, he tried to put you in the trick bag.
Shout out Jay Swift.
Yeah. I got a crew of hot hands. You know, we just united, and there's some beasts. You know, Jay Swift Jr. He's producing for Griselda. You know, he does a lot of their stuff. So we got some stuff going on. You know, that we're about to put out there. But if I have
DJ Supreme.
Yeah, it's a lot of DJs in the building.
Supreme, yeah. That's Battle Dude. That's my brother too.
Storm.
Yeah, Storm. That's my brother too. Supreme, yeah, all of them. They're coming up there. You know, so crazy. Like
Shout out to all the DJs in the chat.
Hey, Dr. Butcher, man, you know I'm a Wu-Tang Klansman for sure, right? You know my co-host, man, they tell you, man, I'm down with Wu W. You know what I'm saying? I get my tattoo any day now.
You're gonna hate me, then, dude.
What you think about the RZA, man? The RZA, that's my favorite producer of all time.
No, dude, no.
He said he ain't fucking with the RZA.
Oh
man.
RZA, okay, so RZA is raw, but RZA is too raw. Like I know RZA's ghost producers, you know what I'm saying? Like his engineer helped him. One of my dudes did a lot of his ghost production. You know, I'm gonna leave it quiet. I'm not gonna say that.
Okay.
RZA was instrumental in. He knew they wore costumes, so you know they were characters, and they knew what to do with that, and they ran with it. And he was a genius at what he did. He had a record label on every label in the industry. He's the only person to ever do that. He's a genius with that. But when you get to the grind of production, I don't gotta say anything. Listen to his people. Like, you know, you can listen to the Wu-Tang Clan, and they will tell you he wasn't on his game, and they wanted to step out and use the hot producers. He wasn't having it though. So that's where a lot of their beef and turmoil started, because they didn't feel like he was on par with Bad Boy and all the underground cast Primo, what guys were doing, and they desperately wanted that sound. You know what I'm saying? And he was good for the first run, but then it kind of fizzled after that. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree.
I think
I met him several times. He's a great cat. You know what I'm saying? And again, he rode his wave. He was a businessman. He did his business. So I support that all day long. But he would never be in my top 5, top 10 producers.
Yeah, I think he was killing all the producers during that time. I don't think nobody was fucking with Only Built for Cuban Links. I don't think nobody was fucking with Liquid Swords. I don't think nobody was fucking with 36 Chambers and none of that shit. So
like he said though, it was in
a lot of MCs was reaching out to the RZA, and RZA wasn't fucking with them too.
It was in a short time span. It was like in about 3-4 years. You know what I'm saying? After that,
but it was funny because when we did Roots of Evil, G Rap, I was in Arizona with G Rap, and he loved Raekwon. Again, I wasn't a fan of any of the Wu-Tang, to be honest with you, but G Rap loved Raekwon, so they asked him to feature on that project, and Ray wanted $30,000 to do the project. G Rap didn't have that type of budget. They were independent at the time, so they offered him $15,000, and I said, "Yo, tell him I'll throw him 3 tracks for free if he's willing to do it to make up the other portion of the 15." And he said, "Sure." So I sent him a tape of like 15 or 20 tracks. He called back and said he needed to talk to me. They needed me to come back to New York and have a meeting. He was working on his follow-up to Cuban Links, to his album. And when I walked in the studio, it was him and his, I guess, Power, his manager, whoever it was at the time, and playing me a lot of what they were doing, and it sounded bad. I really was like, oh, man, y'all gonna need help. And he was like, yeah, so we think it'd be advantageous. You know, we like the 3 you sent. We want those, but we also want the rest of the tracks on the tape. And I was like, really? All of them? And I wasn't a Raekwon fan, so I wasn't googly eyed. Like, oh man, hell yeah, let's go. That wasn't happening with me. So I was like, okay, let's talk. Like, what's the money? What are we talking about? And they just kept saying, we just think it'd be a good look for you to do this project, which I know meant no money. They didn't want to pay me. You know, they wanted me to give them the music because it's Raekwon. But I wasn't doing that. And when G-Rap heard, you know, he heard it, he got offended, you know, and he was like, yo, I would never do that to your people. You know what I'm saying? Like, my dude is giving you 3 tracks. You got to pay the dude if you want the rest of the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's do this the right way. but it went downhill. Nothing happened, you know, and then the project didn't go nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately,
it's unfortunate, Dr. Butcher, that the Wu-Tang didn't affect your soul like it should have, man.
No, you know, because I mean, hearing it, I know what it was. See, this is what it was. RZA was getting all the bread, and I know they got their portion, and they were trying to hold on to their money. They didn't want to. And the thing about it, one of my partners, Sean C, who was down with the X-Men, was an A&R up there. Matty C, I knew everybody up there. I knew the owner of the label, so I had an artist signed there. So it would have been no problem for me to work with Raekwon. You know, I would have loved to have done the project, but I knew there was money there. A lot of money was there. So I wasn't going to sell myself short, even though it would have been a good look. Right. You know, I need motivation. I got bills to pay as well. You know, I know these dudes got the bag. I need my bag. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't want to give up anything. I wasn't giving 20 tracks for free. You know what I'm saying? Like, couldn't do it.
Yeah. Hey, so I got a question for you. You know, we've been talking a lot about the past, a lot of history and everything. So this is a question for you and a question for all the DJs in the chat. What do y'all think about when you look up the highest paid DJs, you know what I mean, and shit like that, and it's all they all white, you know what I'm saying? It's no Jazzy Jeff, it's no pioneers or nothing like that. So what do you think about that whole EDM wave and how DJs are, you know, they're the ones getting paid now instead of the original pioneers like yourself and, you know, a lot of the other DJs? What do y'all think about that?
So those guys call themselves DJs, but not in a traditional sense. They're really artists. So you talk about like Flume and some of these cats from around the world. They're the artists. The crowd is coming, Skrillex. The crowd is coming to see these guys because they have these incredible light shows and performances, and they're playing their own music. They're not playing Wu-Tang records. They're playing their own remixes, their own songs. So the audience is really coming to see them play music and perform. So that's what separates them from traditional DJs. Traditional DJs are playing popular music. So I can't be mad at them. And that's why those guys can walk away with $10 to $20 million in one night. You know what I'm saying? I wish cats started following that lead. You know what I'm saying? Like, actually it's showing you a different business platform that instead of debating it or being angry with it, figure out how to take that platform, that business model, and take it to the turntablism, or even just the mixtape DJs or whatever you want to call yourself at this point in time, and learn from these cats and go forward. You know what I'm saying? Become an artist. Yeah, I support that all day.
So let me ask you this. Hip hop has evolved in so many different ways. You went from people using instruments, actually using the instruments, to people using machines, to people being able to make money from selling tapes out the back of their trunk, to people being able to make money on the internet. Now we're moving to this new wave of AI. What do you think about artificial intelligence and the impact that it may have on hip hop? Do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's a bad thing?
It's both. It depends on who's using it. So you have software that, you know, if I'm working and I'm not a bass player, you have software that you can have all the melodies. Maybe as a musician, you're just a keyboardist. You're not good at bass, or you're not a drummer. There's software you can take your melodies and put it in the software, and it will suggest rhythms, drum patterns for you. It may suggest bass lines for you, and you can take that and manipulate that and go somewhere with it. I'm okay with that because that's no different than hiring a musician to come in and play something. Everyone doesn't have access to a bass player or a keyboard player or a drummer or a horn section or a violin section, you know, so I'm totally cool with that. When it gets crazy is when you're stealing voices and using Jay-Z's voice and Biggie's voice and Eminem's voice to perform Nas's rhymes or some other crazy stuff. I mean, because that's opening the door to something else. Whereas, and I was honest when Google first announced that, you know, you can let Alexa or, you know, Google, you know, use your voice and order Chinese food for you. Whereas they tried to sell it as though this was something grand. I said, that's problematic, especially if you're coming up from the Black community. You can easily be framed for something you did not do. And knowing that the technology's there, how do you combat that? Because they hid it for a long time. Whereas they told you it was new, that technology's been available probably for 20 or 30 years already. It's just becoming available to the public. And by no means will the government ever release anything to the public before it was mastered and perfected 1,000 times over. So even with AI, what we're seeing, they've been doing 50 years ago. This is not new to them. They've been had this stuff. They're just letting us get to it. So
because the Michael Jackson family was mad at I think it was Jive or whatever label he was on. They was mad because it was 3 songs for one of his albums that they released, and they added 3 songs using AI intelligence. This is what I want to ask you, because you make mention of Eminem a lot.
Yes.
And a lot of people consider Eminem to be a visitor in hip hop. Do you think Eminem is one of those artists that should be respected in hip hop? Or do you think that he's just a visitor in hip hop? Me personally, I like Eminem. I think that he did his due diligence. He did the work. He didn't try to be anything other than himself. And I think that he's a force to be reckoned with, right? Yeah. But a lot of people, they have a problem with him. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of us have a problem with Eminem because he's really, really dope and he's really a threat. And so they try to reduce him down to just being a visitor. What's your thoughts and opinions on Eminem placement in hip hop?
I totally agree with you. And at the end of the day, I think that boils down to, some people will try to reduce him and say that just because he's white, he excelled the way he did. But that's not the case. The reason I respect Eminem is because Eminem told Eminem's story. He didn't come out trying to sound like Kool G Rap or Jay-Z or Rakim. Eminem came out sounding like Eminem talking trailer trash stuff, trailer parks, and what was going on. And if you didn't know anything about that life, you would find it entertaining. I would sit there laughing all day long. I love the dude. My man Big Chuck was Dre's top A&R at the time, and he called me and wanted me to do music for him and Eve. He was signed to Dre at that time, and he played it. He was like, yo, Dre just signed this white cat that has a flow of Jay-Z and can spit like Jay-Z and G Rap put together. And he's like, you have to hear him, Butcher. And so when they came to New York, he was like, we're going to get some music. I'm not going to tell you he can use it, but I'm going to get some music from y'all and take it back and get you a check. And he did what he said he was going to do. But when I heard the cat do, I was like, he's the business. And I'm coming from lyricists all day. I was around the best of the best. So, it was kind of like how Rakim hit the planet. Rakim was deep Long Island. He wasn't in the city. So he stood out because he was coming with this 5% of mindset and from a different place, a different influence, a slow flow that cats hadn't heard. Slick Rick was another one. They stood out because they had different influences. And when you heard them, it was like, what the hell? It would just blow your mind. So for anyone to try to reduce Eminem's lyrical skills would have to be crazy. Any lyricist will tell you he's nothing to touch. He's still on his own. It's just, you had all these other artists come behind him. I can't say that Eminem, he's one of a kind. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to give him his full kudos, credentials, and respect that he deserves.
Okay. So I have one more question, and then I'm going to ask you something else, and then I'm going to let the guys ask you something, and we'll get into our school post and discuss that. There are a lot of East Coast rappers that they are really just pretty much just all into lyricism. And a lot of them at this particular day and age, they're not rolling in the dough like a lot of younger artists that are not purists or anything like that. They're not rolling in the dough. And you have a lot of East Coast artists that they do really good on features. They do really good with freestyles. They do really good with battle rapping, but they have a hard time making a cohesive album, such as Jadakiss. Jadakiss is one of the hardest lyricists that I've heard from the East Coast before. but the man cannot make an album to save his life. So what do you think are some of the elements that the East Coast rappers can use in order for them to make an album that is really going to sell? Because there's no reason why someone like Jadakiss is not held in the same standard like a Jay-Z, like a Nas, like a Big, like a DMX. Like he's up there with those guys, but he can't make an album to save his life.
Well, I think Nas actually struggled with that as well. I mean, he's made great records. Nas has made great records.
Nas have a problem with finding the right beats. Like Nas production be more of a problem than anything. So do you think it's one of those things where the East don't have as much soul where they can't find the right beat or something?
It's the artists. It's not they can't find the right beat. A lot of artists seclude themselves from who they want to take music from. And there's always issues with, producers and various things. So they kind of, have their own team. Fifth is great at picking music, I think that's the struggle. Like a lot of artists, like you said, can write, but when you start making records and a label wants you to sell records, you realize that lyricism just spit into that core group is only going to go but so far. You got to start making records. And even LL, when he did like going back to Cali and that stuff, he despised those records. But the label, Rick Rubin and them knew what the records would do. L didn't understand it. And he was like, don't put that out. They put it out and it took off. He hated it. I Need Love was just something. He was in the studio with the engineer Steve Vett. Steve Vett played the melody and L heard it. He's a very prolific dude. He heard it and just wrote the song. I was like, yo, I got an idea. He's another good person for that. He'll come up with these off-the-wall ideas, and he wrote I Need Love. Yeah. He had no clue that he said in the stage that was going to be his lane. It took off, and he ran with it. So I think every artist, Jay-Z struggled with that. You have to find where's your lane. Where's your lane? Meaning, where can I go to be me, have people respect me, and then have the world love me? You know what I'm saying? That is the most difficult thing to do. And I think that's why artists like the guy Graf I mentioned never made it. Because, I mean, he writes for Nicki, Ghost writes for people. You go research him on YouTube and listen to that dude spit. He is a beast of all beasts, but he can never make records. Like, he struggled. And him and Fifth kind of got into it. But he struggled. Whereas Fifth studied and Fifth knew what to do with that. Fifth was groomed to just make records. And that's why everything Fifth does, no matter if it's good or bad, it still sounds like a finished, polished record. Because that's all he knows how to do.
And so DJ Storm, he let me have it. He said she bugging. He said, DJ Storm said Jadakiss first 2 albums were classics. You crazy.
You're crazy.
I will say this.
In Baltimore, so he's East Coast. That's why.
Jadakiss is a classic. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where we love Jadakiss. We respect Jadakiss as a lyricist. Jadakiss himself, he's a classic, right? So Jadakiss came out with, what was it, The Kiss of Death? I like the album. This is how you got to listen to Jadakiss, and I hope this makes sense when I say this.
Probably won't.
The lyrics and what he's saying,
it's crazy.
Dope. It's crazy. It's like if you put Jadakiss on your track, it's going crazy. Jadakiss is hard, right? The thing is, when I talk about an album, I'm talking about the cohesiveness of an album. The arranging the album, making the album timeless. Yeah, you could listen to a Jadakiss album and you could possibly say, oh, it's a classic, but it's not so much as the album itself is classic. It's Jadakiss himself is classic. You get what I'm saying? So it's a difference between. It's one of those things where if he gonna put it out, we gonna listen to it and we gonna respect his artistry, but all at the same time, he doesn't have an album that really stuck for real.
I mean, that's
just facts.
Yeah, his mixtapes and the Locks mixtapes like them was more, you know what I'm saying? Like you would listen to them more than you would listen to a Jadakiss solo album, you know what I'm saying? Something like that.
So
that's what I'm saying. And it's not to diminish him or anything like that. It's just when you think about Jadakiss albums or you think about classic albums and you start naming, everybody right now named their top 5 classic albums, Jadakiss would never be in that lineup, and that's a
So
fact.
what you're talking about, I'm gonna show you a great example with that, and it all comes down to production and producers. Some people are just happy to sell the track and they sit back and let the artist do what they want to do. Real producers will work with the artist to try to build something great. Look at Michael Jackson working with Rod Temperton and Quincy Jones, his first 2 solo projects. The Thriller, and then he left them. Went on. Now the record sold because he was a superstar. He was Michael Jackson, but those records didn't sound nothing like Thriller in his first album. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Michael learned what to do over time, but Quincy, when you're around a writer like Rod Temperton and a producer like Quincy Jones, that's next level stuff. You can't reduce that. These guys taught Michael Jackson to be Michael Jackson. And then coming from that Motown camp and being schooled through the Motown camp, and then you get to these elite writers and producers as well. If Jada probably needs more of a camp, but that's a whole East Coast New York thing where it's all about I, and nobody has camps. Whereas in the South or the West, I came across the cats that produced Color Me Bad, and they was working with me and Akineyle, living in Long Island. My man Mark Murray and Hamza and these other cats, Nardo, and they were a team. I went to their crib, and one cat was all classically trained. Nardo was like the R&B dude, and my other dude, he was the hip hop dude, but he played multiple instruments. So they had a crew that all worked together and would do what they did. And New York production, other than track masters, it was difficult. Everybody wants to be able to say, I did this. Whereas everywhere else you go, cats are in as a team. And I think the artists were into that too. So if Jada sat down with a real production team, like the Specialists, once again, I think he would get a whole different vibe. You know what I'm saying? And we're right now
because like
that's another thing. That's another thing.
Jadakiss don't seem to be the type of person that will let somebody guide him. But I want to speak to the real DJ Supreme comment. The real DJ Supreme. I'm loving y'all comments. So keep it going. Like DJ the video, Supreme. Share the video, and subscribe. He said Busta is the same. His artistry is murder, but his albums are average. I gotta disagree. The Common, fire. The Common was fire. Element 2, fire. Like,
what about the Dre album? Dr. Dre produced.
No, Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, I know. He said the Busta Rhymes project when he was selling Dre.
Oh yeah, that was average. You know what I'm saying? He had a few average albums. He had quite he probably had more average albums.
Average albums, but he would get it together at times because the Common, I'm gonna tell you, Busta Rhymes made albums that made like the Common and Element 2. It felt like you was watching a movie. It felt like you was like, well, not much as watching it, but like hearing a movie. It was cinematic. It was like that Element 2. I don't know. That should have won Album of the Year.
No, and again, he's another one of those artists that can take a track that most other rappers are going to bypass and hear what it should be done, and then know what to do with that particular record and murder it. He's excellent at that. Like Busta has probably one of the best feelings for that, and you don't hear that nowadays. Everything is so robotic and the same. You can't even tell who's producing what. All the artists want to sound like the next artist. All the producers want to sound like the same producer.
And now the producers have to put tags. They have to put tags now. Where back in the day, you didn't have to use a tag. You already knew who was doing what you knew when you was listening to certain producers. You just knew it because, like, if I listen to, I say, Pharrell or Dre or Manny Fresh or KLC, Beats by the Pound, or some people like that, RZA even. We knew who we were listening to.
Yeah.
You didn't need a tag.
Yeah. But nowadays, I think that art, that part of music is gone. And it's like the media wants that. Like, even if you come out and try to do something unique, they pull back. Like, they want everything to just sound robotic all across the board with this low frequency crap. It's garbage. And we just got to bring it back. I mean, when that's all the generation is hearing, they're gonna keep following trends. So I mean, I think it's on us to put the good stuff back out there, where we show them that you guys, we still can teach you a lot. There's still a lot to learn. You should always be
So Jay Swift want to correct me and say it's not the element, it's the element 2. Okay.
Extinction level event 2.
Extinction level event 2. It's
right.
okay.
Hey, I want to apologize too, Dr. Butch. I don't want you to think I'm being rude, man. I'm working 2 jobs right now, so I'm going back and forth, man. So I apologize to everybody out there watching. To you too, brother. Don't think I'm being rude. I'm with you. I'm listening.
Yes.
And then DJ Supreme said, I'm just saying his albums aren't as major as his singles and solo hit. Yeah. That's true. Right. And then even Not You is pressing the fact about Jada Kiss having a classic album. I will say this, when it boils down to it and you think about it, when it comes to certain cats and it comes to a classic album, I think that people have to consider the consensus when they're talking about classic albums, right? Consensually, Jada doesn't have a classic album.
No,
now, personally, that's your personal opinion that he has a classic album.
No, he doesn't.
Can I make a point about that, y'all? Some MCs' ego gets so big to where they think they can rhyme over anything, right? You got this saying that I don't make the beat don't make me, I make the beat.
Right.
And a lot of MCs like Jada Kiss, I think that he gets caught up in that shit sometimes. Me personally, I think Styles P a better MC, and I think he make way better albums.
Definitely make better albums.
Oh, he definitely make better albums, but he's not a better MC than Jada.
To me, Jada Kiss is a better wordsmith, but all around Styles P is a better MC.
No.
Styles P, he's like a Pac, he's like a Scarface, like a Benny Siegel. He's able to rhyme and be dope, but also speak to your soul and pull out that emotion in you. So
Kiss
I'm gonna go with Styles P all
Kiss
day.
Code too, with the metaphors, and Kiss Code too. Man. So
yeah, they go.
But they both, you know what I'm saying. Shout out to Kiss and Styles. You know what I'm saying. We're gonna have to
Styles make better Styles album wise. I got to give it to Styles P.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
a fact.
You know, we got to give it to Styles P on it. That's without a doubt. Lyrically wise, being an MC, they got to go to Jada. I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course, yeah, you got to give that to Jada all day. But that's always the problem with lyricists. Everyone doesn't know how to make songs. G Rap struggled with that. I mean, I'll be the first thing. He makes great listen to songs, but big records. I mean, Trackmasters gave him his 2 biggest records. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a struggle for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? A lot of artists. And G Rap worked with Pharrell, and I'm sure the record would have been a hit, but he felt like he was compromising himself when he heard the track and said, "No, I can't do this." And they sat. He thought Pharrell was going to bring him like several tracks. Pharrell, they made the track in the studio, and G Rap's not used to that. And he was like, "Nah, dogs, I need something else. I'm not feeling this." And Pharrell was like, "Yo, I'm your favorite, biggest fan, man. Use this. Trust me, we're gonna make a hit." And G Rap wouldn't go for it, and it never came out. They never got it done.
Yeah. Reginald Clemens. Oh no, that was Mumu said. Style P, Gangsta and a Gentleman is definitely a classic. Hands down. That's an actual classic. You can't say that about Jada Kiss. So let me ask you this, Dr. Butcher, before we get into our school post. You've toured with different artists, you've been in the studio with different artists. What was one of your craziest, most funniest moments with an artist that people never heard before?
Give us something good. Give us an exclusive. We need that exclusive.
Okay, so we were working on, I can't say this is the fun. I've had so many funny moments. I wouldn't really know where to start, from having guys come in the studio playing crazy tracks that were terrible. But I know one crazy funny moment was we were in Boston, in Worcester, Massachusetts, recording the 456 album. And it was a snowstorm. And the place we were recording at, we found out was considered to be a haunted studio. And we thought so because a lot of weird shit was happening the whole time we were there that just didn't make no sense. A lot of paranormal stuff. And they wouldn't say anything to us because they were afraid we were going to leave. But the snowstorm started, and it was saying it was going to be like 2-3 foot of snow, and we were going to be stuck. I had to get to work the next day. G Rap wanted to get out of there, and my wife is with me and some other cats, and we're sitting there, and we're working on the last song, and then the tape machine just stops. And we're like, yo, what the hell's going on? So all the engineers come in the studio, they're in the back room, and we found out. Then one of the guys started telling us, we're like, yo, this place is crazy. Some of y'all need to tell us about this studio. And the guy starts laughing. So he tells us a story about like a lot of rock cats use that studio. Big rock bands would use that studio. And I forgot if it was U2 or somebody that was there. And he said that the drummer recorded in nighttime and the group recorded in the daytime. And so they were there working. And one night, the drummer, after a week of being there, came in the studio and was like, hey, who's the young lady that cooks the food? Because they always had food ready for you 24 hours a day. And he was like, man, she'd be throwing down with that food. And, you know, she's always down there knitting her sweaters and we be talking. And the engineer was like, who are you talking about? And he was like, the young lady, the young girl. Like, I forget her name. And he was like, dude, I don't know. There's no young girl in the studio. Who are you talking about? He was like, the cook. He's like, there's no cook. And what it was is that many moons ago, like in the 1800s, the family that owned that property was on a farm called, I forgot the name of the studio, but it was on a farm. A young girl died in a barn. The barn caught fire and she died. Her name was Emily. So that the barn still, they fixed the barn, it's still there, and there's a room. The second floor was like a bedroom. At night, you could see a shadow walking around that room. And me and G-Rap saw it many times and didn't know what it was. We didn't think about it. But it's her shadow that would roam the room. Nobody would ever go in the barn. So when the stuff stopped, G-Rap was like, yo, Emily's telling us let's get the fuck out of the studio. He was like, she wants us gone. She doesn't want to hear anymore. So he was like, yo, this is kind of crazy. And I'm sitting at the booth. We like 2 hours go by and they can't get anything to work. And out of the blue, the tapes just started rolling. The reels just started playing. And everybody's looking around like, yo, all the engineers run out the room and it's like, what did you do? And I was the only person at the desk. I'm like, I didn't do nothing. I thought y'all fixed it. They was like, no, we didn't know what to do. No one knew what to do. The music just randomly started playing. G-Rap was like, yo, y'all, let's pack up. We're leaving. We're not even recording. And we just all go.
A ghost kicked y'all out of the studio. So y'all got kicked out of the studio by a ghost.
That nigga told a ghost story.
And Supreme Rod, he loves supernatural and all that old sci-fi stuff.
That was right up his alley.
I got goosebumps. I'm scared too.
Look, I want to hear the rest. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
That was crazy.
That's a dope story.
Yeah. So, we're gonna get into the to the school post, and then we're gonna do the trivia. Before we get into the school post, I want to ask you this: are you still working in music? Do you have anything up and coming or anything like that?
Yeah, like I said, I have a team we call the Specialists. Funk Star, DJ Static, my brother Stress, William Roswell, Jay Swift Jr. We have a whole crew of producers, and we're all actively doing things. Actually, we have my man DJ Eclipse and Riz. Hip Hop's Out of Control, so we're doing our project for Eclipse. Actually, you know, he runs Fat Beats now. We're producing this project. We're going to do our own EP. And then all the artists are just working, you know, like all the producers, you know, like I said, Jay Swift Jr. is working with Zelda a lot. We're all out there doing our own thing at the same time. My cousin Big West, you know, we're definitely working. We're just gearing up, putting things together, putting the pieces in place, trying to do it right. You know what I'm saying? Like we've all been down that path, been beaten ahead a lot of times. And, you know, being the oldest, Jay Swift, who was commenting, you know, he's right under me. He discovered Papoose. He brought Papoose to the table of G-Rap. So, you know, we all have big time to a lot of people. And so we're going to pull all that together and resurface, you know, with some newness. But, you know, we got William Roswell, Keith Turner, some artists that producers, artists, you know, that we're dealing with. It's going to be fun, man. Like we have, at this point, you know, it's not I'm not doing music for money. You know, I have a great job. I'm straight, you know, financially. It's all about the passion. Like I know that's what God designed me to do, you know. So I support my brothers Rob, Silk, Swift, and Sinister with the DJing, my production dudes, and artists. I just like artists, man. I just want some hotness. You know what I'm saying? I want to bring out the best and show people it's not about this robotic stuff, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get back to the real stuff. Because the bar is so low. You know, now the other thing you're seeing now is I don't have nothing against female artists, but I don't like the way the females want to be the guys and the guys are soft like females. That's kind of driving me crazy right now. I can't get into the music.
Yep.
So I need to see that fire come back. Females, Rod Digger was aggressive, but she was a monster, you know? So I don't have any Antoinette. All these they were aggressive, but they were crazy. But when you're acting like you could beat up dudes and all this other stuff,
so you don't like females doing like drill rap. So how do you feel about how do you feel about like artists like Glorilla and Scarlett?
Well, Glorilla is a guy, so I don't know about that. You know, Scarlett, I'm learning about Scarlett. All my dudes back east are talking about her. I'm not crazy about it. I think it's a wave everybody's jumping on. I'm not. It's not anything for me. I'm gonna be honest. If she said I need some tracks, okay. I'm not. Yo, Scarlett boy. I'm not on it. It's just because you got, you know,
better hop on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not. It's not my type of artist. I'll say that. That's not what I'm into. You know what I'm saying?
I feel.
I got Keith Turner, who will blow Scarlett off the planet. So I'm not concerned with Scarlett, to be honest with you. You know, my girl will kill Scarlett. So, and she's a lady. You know what I'm saying? Like she's bringing fire as a lady. I'm with that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. What's up? I got craziness going on. You know what I'm saying? I'm a father. I want the image to come back to where it's supposed to be. Father, mother. You know what I'm saying? That's why I stand with it. So
I feel you on that. Hey, on that note, somebody got a question. You say, is it an artist that you never got to work with that would be a dream come true?
Hey,
you got one out there?
That question. Let's go with. Hey, DH, can we go into the trivia? I got a roll.
Okay.
I got the answers.
Okay. So you want to answer the hip hop trivia? Okay.
Yeah.
So this week's hip hop trivia question is: what two famous rappers were about to fight each other in 1993 at Flavor Flav's birthday party? You being our guest, Dr. Butcher, who you think it was?
I have absolutely no clue whatsoever. I'll probably, once you tell me, I can probably elaborate on it. But just out the gate, it could be anybody. I have no clue who that was.
I actually have no clue, but I think because there was some beef back in the day with Flavor Flav and Willie D. I want to say maybe it was Willie D and somebody else, or Willie D trying to fight Flavor Flav in his own house.
Nope,
I got it.
What you got, Easy?
What you think, Easy?
You say 93? Shit, I really ain't got no idea. Flavor Flav 93, man. I'm gonna take a wild guess of somebody like 93, man. I can't
gotta hurry up, the man gotta go.
Flav, I'm gonna say Flav and somebody.
This fight stems from some on wax beef that took place years earlier.
KRS-One
between two heavy hitters from each coast. The fight that was about to happen in 1993 at Flavor Flav's birthday party was between LL Kool J and Ice-T.
Yeah,
wow.
They was beefing. They was beefing.
And LL Cool J was gonna beat the brakes off Ice-T. Listen, LL Cool J came, Mama said knock you out. That man was beating up home invaders. That man with Ice-T was finna get ragdoll, beat cats.
Hey, they had a nice little battle on wax.
Yeah, they did.
They had a nice little battle on wax. Hey, but I gotta ride, y'all. Hey, great show, man. Dr. Butcher, man, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I'll be back in the after y'all.
Peace.
Absolutely.
So we gotta get back to that. Get back to that question. Peace out, Supreme. We're gonna hit you up later.
Peace. Take care.
The question was, let's get back to that question real quick.
Who did I want to work with?
Yeah, somebody be a dream for you to work with.
A dream artist, man.
If it's anybody else.
Probably Jay-Z. I'm not gonna say he's a dream artist, but Jay-Z and I had a good relationship. He had a lot of respect for me. But I didn't know at the time. I was always giving him music while we were on the road that he would never deal with. That Jazzo was come out too. Jazzo told me the same thing. So I knew it wasn't personal. You know, he was like, yo, he's not taking my music either. And then when the whole Nas beef set off, I realized it probably had more to do with my connection to Akineyle. That he didn't want to use. But he respected me a lot. Like, you know, dude always showed me love. So I said I probably would have enjoyed working with Jay-Z. I think I would have had fun doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, put it together, man. It ain't over with. So, but he ain't came out with nothing. Then shit, it's been what 6-7 years now. So
I think his last album was it 444, and then he did the album with Jay Electronica, right?
Oh yeah, he
did
that.
The one with Jay Electronica was later than 444, wasn't it?
Right. That was
so that was the latest project was the Jay Electronica. And to be honest with you, that was meditation music. It was all right, but it was more so a Jay-Z album featuring Jay Electronica.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the thing that tripped me out.
Exactly.
And it was bad because Jay Electronica was touted to be like the next dude who would never come out, and then when he finally comes out, it's a total flop. You know, like no one even pays attention to it. So that was like unfortunate.
And it was a flop too.
It was like, I'm gonna tell you something, because I listen to, there are certain hurts in music that it gives you a certain it puts you in a certain mood and put you in a certain vibe. I forget the number of the hurts, but if I go back and I can tell y'all what it is, it's like it's certain hurts that can put you in a meditative state. And when I listened to that album, the production was actually like that music that you would hear in a salon or spa when you're getting a facial or something and you're trying to relax. That shit really put me to sleep. Let's be very clear. Now,
I never listened to it.
If you listen to it, it's the production is soothing. It's one of those things where it can put you on a trance where you just go to sleep. It's a meditative music. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump into this school post. This week's hip hop school post is, what song or songs got you through some tough times? So somebody posted in the hip hop school past and present group on Facebook that started this whole thing, this podcast that we have here. And we take quotes and we take posts from the group and ask them on the show. So somebody posted, what song or songs got you through some hard times? Dr. Butcher, we're going to start with you. Oh,
that's hard for me. I mean, because if I point to any songs, it wouldn't be hip hop. It would be jazz, you know, Summer Madness and Sade records. You know, those are the records I can zone out to Sade at any point in time and just go somewhere with my mind. And like, you know, that old jazz stuff, I can just zone out with that and study chords, and what these guys was doing, you know, is just fascinating to this day. But, you know, with hip hop, just being around, you know, LL, my dude Snow, just guys, you know, all of my dudes was probably the most inspiring, you know, because we were all in a place making each other better, iron sharp as iron, on the DJ front, on the lyrical front, on the production front. And you felt that in the studio, you know what I'm saying? Like the camaraderie was incredible. Like, everyone, Clark Kent, if he came in while he was working with Biggie, you know, and seeing what we were doing, you know, everyone's wanting to know because everyone's at the cusp of trying to be great and trying to be the best. You know what I'm saying? And I know, like, talking to Jay-Z, when I found out G Rap was his favorite artist, I was like, yo, why don't you let me get y'all guys together to do a song? Hov didn't want no part of that, even though that was his favorite artist, because he knew this was his moment. And knowing what G Rap could do to everybody that he got on the song with, he was not playing that. You know, he was not sharing his moment with anyone. But I get that, you know what I'm saying? And being in that world, watching people come up, running with her, you know, being on Earth, him playing me DMX and Job before they ever got released, all that stuff, dude, you know, being around us, just so many things that I can tap into that was inspiring. You know, like, I get to walk with that. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people with fans. I'm in the studio with that. Like, I have those thoughts. So whenever I'm sitting down doing music, I channel that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And meeting Quincy Jones, Herbie Hancock, and Bradford Marcellus, me and Rob Swift, all in one setting was crazy. That's probably the most craziest thing I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Having these older guys talk to you like sons or, you know, little nephews and stuff was crazy. And you have to walk away from that like, geez, like,
crazy.
You know, you're never here. I hear a lot of guys pat themselves on the back and, you know, riding on high horse, but when you around that level of supreme, you know, music-wise, you know there's no end. And they'll tell you, like, you know, you always have to strive to get better. I don't care how old you are, what you're doing, technology's getting better. You should grow and get better with everything, you know what I'm saying? And bring out the best in you. And that's why I say, you know what I'm saying? So to answer your question,
we got
y'all down in the comments. Y'all answer the question too. Let us know what are some songs that got y'all through some hard times. We want to hear from y'all. Heezy, what are some songs that got you through some hard times?
I could think of two off the top of my head as far as hip hop go. I'm like you, Dr. Butch. I listen to a lot of reggae sometimes. That kind of give me, you know what I'm saying, like shit like that. But as far as hip hop go, man, Tupac and Scarface, Smile. You know what I'm saying?
That's one of mine.
That's one of my ones. You know what I'm saying? I go to that all the time. And then one, for sure. And then one more underground song, Smooth the Hustler, Never Die Alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just one of my go-to. That's one of them low key. Yeah. Like, you know, some people don't really, you know what I mean, ain't really up on it like that. But Smooth the Hustler, Never Die Alone. You know what I'm saying? For sure.
Each of them, they were hardcore. Smooth the Hustler was crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Who you got, the age?
Mental Song says "Sky's the Limit" by Big. That's a good one. Slipping by DMX, J Swift. That's a good one. Get Up, Get Out by Goody Mob. That's a good one. I comprise me a little list or whatever, because just like you guys, I'm more so when I'm going through hard times, I'm from the Delta, I'm from Memphis, so I listen to me some blues. You know, just like he said, I listen to me some reggae as well. That End of the Red, that's really one of my favorite songs.
And it's vibrations, that's why.
But when I think about hip hop, some hip hop songs that really helped me through hard times is Player Fly, Ghetto Eyes,
that's my
Scarface,
right
Pac, Smile, Kanye West, Wait Till I Get My Money Right, when I'm going through the struggle and I, you know, feeling a little down about how my pocket's looking or whatever. They just keep me motivated. Lost by Gorilla Zoe, Perfect Imperfection by Kevin Gates. I don't want to be here. What that Fiend? What is? I say all I know.
Man, Fiend got so many.
I don't want to go. They're right Fiend. There. That song, and then also this finna trip y'all out. Party Life by Jay-Z. That's a song that, you know, it helps. It take you back to like that Harlem Renaissance type of era, the sexy, where the man was the gentleman and the woman, you know, she real sexy, got on her high heels, her red lipstick for the night or whatever, feeling sexy or whatever the case may be. And I think, you know, that just helps me, you know, with my, you know, boost my self-esteem and my confidence a little bit. I be feeling real sexy riding around listening to that, because as a woman, we deal with a whole lot of, you know, criticism and the world telling you how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to talk, how you're supposed to walk, how you're supposed to look, this, that, and the third. But that song, it was really like just some real chill player type stuff, and it just made me feel sexy when I heard it. You know, so those are my songs that get me through.
That's what's happening.
Yes, indeed. Y'all that's out there that's watching, make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all like the video. Make sure y'all share the video. Dr. Butcher, when we end the show, stay on for like 2 minutes with us. Don't click off. Before we leave tonight, do you have anything that you would like to say before we end this show? Any gems or jewels or whatever you would like to drop before we end the show? Or just let us know what you got coming up.
Yeah, just look out for the specialists. Like I said, I've been talking about my team. You know, we're going to try to do what we can do. You know, we're serious about it. So, you know, I think sometime soon you'll see the name just coming out and going hard, you know. But I love what it is, man. Like, you know, you can't give up on yourself. I talked to a lot of dudes are anti-technology. I think my alumni kind of stuck in a certain place. That bothers me, you know, because there's so much there that if they took what they knew and applied it to technology was available, they would have a lot of fun. But you know, the stigma of who they are, who they were, what they want to be, sits on them. You know, and they I feel like people are just stuck and can't move. You know, whereas I never let myself get there. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's not a money thing for me. It's a passionate thing. You know, I know that's what my purpose was. You know, God, that's what He put the purpose in my heart to do. So that's what I'm gonna follow, and nobody can stop me from that. You know.
And what you're saying that I'm not gonna hold you, but is there a artist of today, like a young cat, that you would like to, that you could see yourself actually working with? Well, what you said, that is something that is very important about your alumni, kind of like stuck in a certain place. Is there any new artists of today that you could see yourself working with one day?
I like Yellow Beezy. I mean, I hear a lot of dudes. There are a lot of young dudes that do their thing. You know, like cats because they trap. But you know, I listen to dudes for lyrics. Like, so if I hear some lines, you got my attention. Kevin Gates, like you mentioned, is crazy.
Sauce Walker.
You know,
what you think about Sauce Walker?
Dope. Yeah, dope. I mean, there's people out there that got. I think there's a group. There's a crew of these guys out there that may have been groomed by older cats who, you know, were lyricists or from that era. So they still carry that. Like J. Cole and, you know, all these guys. But they know the trend. They got to still talk to their audience and their peers who want to hear trap. So they got to jump the fence, you know, on both sides. And I get it. I support it. I understand it. But you got to keep the lyrics there. Like that content is important. We've grown up on content. If, you know, imagine listening to love songs where you didn't understand the lyrics. You know, like, how could you enjoy a love song if somebody just mumbling all through the song? It sounds terrible. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I know cats in New York, you know, buddies of mine that got sons, and man, Kyle, you know, he has his son. He's spitting. He's doing all trap, but he's spitting. I have my cousin Mike in Charlotte. He's spitting. You know what I'm saying? And he's doing trap, and he's a multi-instrumentalist. He graduated as a multi-instrumentalist from college, you know, so he's well-educated, super smart, and he's doing what he's doing, but he's not mumbling, you know what I'm saying? And we talk all the time, you know, he's humble enough to come to me and ask me my take on what he's doing, and I was like, yo, just keep the lyrics right, bro, like, don't sound like these other dudes, stand out, you know what I'm saying? I know you're talking to a new generation, do you? That I don't know, do you? But let them lyrics be right, you know, and so I support it. I'm not anti-artist, I'm just anti-mumbling. I want to hear what you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? So,
y'all keep the conversation rolling. You know, any thoughts and opinion y'all had on anything that we have discussed, as well as the hip hop, the school posts on what songs that got y'all through some hard times. Continue to comment and let us know down below. Dr. Busher, we thank you so much for blessing our platform and taking us through a walk down memory lane, and you were able to, you know, give us some answers to some questions that we all had, and it was just a breath of fresh air. You know, anybody that's a hip hop head like we are, we love it. You know what I'm saying? We love it. So definitely
thank you for having me.
A really, really dope experience. Thank you for blessing the platform. Hey man, y'all out there watching. Go ahead, what you say?
You got to thank your girl Kristen.
Oh yeah, we got to shout out to Kristen. She gonna tell me, she gonna like, you gotta shout me out on the show. I said, not Miss Mamas that don't want to come on the show, you know, don't want to get on the camera, because she's a hip hop head too.
I know she is. Yeah.
That's my bestie.
That's awesome.
Yes, indeed. And her baby girl is graduating next weekend. So shout out to Bree.
She just got a promotion.
Yes, God.
She just got a promotion, so shout out to Kristen as well.
Oh yes, God, we rolling in. I'm gonna ask her for a loan in a minute.
Yeah, she got tickets to dinner.
Oh yeah, we got to do something. We definitely got to do something. We might go ahead and suck the head off a crawfish. Yeah, crawfish season. Yes, God.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure y'all like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We're about to tune out. Y'all have a good one.
The Hip Hop School, Past and Present Podcast.